Good morning and welcome to the September 12th Sunday service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of St. Petersburg, Florida. My name is Ben Atherton Zeman and I am the minister here. Whoever you are and wherever you are on your journey, please know that you are welcome here. Some things you should know about our services on YouTube. Closed captioning is available to provide accessibility. On most devices and operating systems, you'll find the CC icon on the lower right portion of your screen. So if you're watching the premiere, you can use the text chat. Please use the text chat. Introduce yourself right now. Say who you are, where you're coming from. If you're watching it afterwards, you don't get to do that. As a reminder, we're going to gather on Zoom afterwards for a Zoom coffee hour. We are still trying to determine whether it is feasible to gather outside the church to watch the Sunday service on the television screen in the front. That will depend on the status of COVID infections in our county. I hope all of you watching will find something that helps you grow spiritually, both individually and as a member of the greater community. I need you to do this work. Your presence is needed and wanted as we work toward building a blessed community and working for social justice in this world. I am happy to be joined by our worship associate, Bill Motter, who will read us a poem and share our community's joys and concerns. Also happy to be joined by Janae Johnson, who will tell us a little bit about the parents of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And we'll talk a little bit about the context in which he was brought into the world in, I believe, 1929. And I am happy to be joined by John Arterton, who will provide music for this worship service, and James Mack, who will put these videos together. Thank you so much to all of you. Now, let us say our covenant out loud as I light our chalice. But first, let's take another moment of silence together to center ourselves for the worship service. Our flaming chalice is a symbol of Unitarian Universalism. It's a symbol of hope, the sacred, the quest for truth, the warmth of community, the light of reason, and so much more. So let us say our covenant, along with the chalice lighting, to create a reverent space for reflection, prayer, meditation, and singing at home. Whichever you prefer to do. Each week we say this covenant. From James Vila Blake from our hymnal. Please join me in saying it now. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning. My name is Janae Johnson, and I'm your Religious Education and Communications Coordinator here at UU St. Pete. For today's Story for All Ages, I'll be sharing a page from this story about Martin Luther King. The paintings are by Malika Zeldis, and the words are by Rosemary L. Bray. In 1929, not long after New Year's, a son was born to Alberta King and her husband, Reverend Michael L. King, of Atlanta, Georgia. They named their child Michael L. King Jr., but a few years later, Reverend King decided to change his name to Martin and changed his son's name well. The Kings were a middle-class Black family living in the South in the 1930s. They had enough food and clothes, and they had a pleasant home to live in. but where they can go and what they can do were limited by segregation, a series of laws and customs that kept blacks and whites apart in many ways. Segregation meant different things in different places. At the movies, for example, black people sat in the shabby and uncomfortable balcony, while white people sat downstairs in a cleaner and attractive part of the theater. On buses, people of color had to sit back, away from people who were not. Other people can go out to dinner at restaurants they choose, while most restaurants were closed to people of color. The law segregated black people from whites, and it differed from one part of the country to another too. In the South, blacks and whites often lived near one another. In the North, however, blacks and whites lived in completely separate neighborhoods. But whatever the specific laws were, one side was often treated better than the other. Now, black people had to learn to make the best out of situations that were meant to hurt and insult. So churches were a good example. When our people first came to America, they were gradually banned from attending church and praying with whites. They formed their own churches and ordained their own ministers. They prayed and sang the way they wanted to, and began to organize and work to improve conditions for all black people. Something that was intended to crush their spirit became instead a source of strength. The Reverend Martin King was the minister of one such church, the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. And though the times were very difficult for people of color, he believed that things would be different one day, that the attitude of white people towards black people would change. He very much wanted his son, Martin Luther King, to believe that too. One thing that I learned about this story is that we can come together to grow something better. As quoted from Bruce Lee, we can absorb what is useful, discard what is useless, and add what is specifically your own. So I take that quote and I think about the way we navigate around one another. Will we step over a person that's laying in front of our church? Or will we help them up and help put the pieces of the puzzle together as to how they are there? Do we support things like our tiny homes for veterans or a Friday night picnic? Anything to make a difference in our space. We have the tools embedded in our hands to actually do so. Another Bruce Lee quote that I absolutely admire: I was raised to treat the janitor with the same respect as the CEO. So in doing so, we learn to treat people as people. Disregarding gender, race, class, religion, age, sexual orientation, gender expression. We are all alike, but unalike in the daily sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, and other daily acts of violence that are perpetuated against some of us and that others are sheltered from. We're in this space, one another together. Thank you, Reverend Ben, for sharing that. Because in this space, we are all one. We are not separate from one another. We are all connected.
Good morning, friends. I'm Bill Motter. This week's joys and concerns include healing thoughts being sent to Audrey's ears. Audrey is in hospice care, but will soon be home. Feel free to type in any additional joys or concerns into the comments section on YouTube.
We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. Oh, we'll build a promised land that can be Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. Come build a land where we bring the good tidings to all the afflicted and all those who mourn, and will give them garlands instead of ashes. Oh, we'll build a land where peace is born. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
And I'd like to share a poem about COVID-19 by an unknown author. We are not in the same boat. I heard that we are in the same boat, but it's not like that. We are in the same storm, but not in the same boat. Your ship can be shipwrecked, and mine might not be, or vice versa. For some, quarantine is optimal, a moment of reflection, of reconnection. For others, this is a desperate crisis. For others, it is facing loneliness. For some, a peace, rest time, vacation. Yet for others, torture. How am I going to pay my bills? Some were concerned about a brand of chocolate for Easter. Others were concerned about the bread or the weekend, or if the noodles would last for a few more days. Some were in their home office. Others are looking through trash to survive. Some have experienced the near death of the virus. Some have already lost someone from it. Some are not sure their loved ones are going to make it, and some don't even believe this is a big deal. Some of us who are well now may end up experiencing it, and some believe they are infallible and will be blown away if or when this hits someone they know. So friends, we are not in the same boat. We are going through a time when our perception and needs are completely different, and each one will emerge in his own way from that storm. Some with a tan from their pool, others with scars on the soul for invisible reasons. It is very important to see beyond what is seen at first glance, not just looking, more than looking, seeing. See beyond the political party, beyond religion, beyond the nose on your face. Do not underestimate the pain of others if you do not feel it. Do not judge the good life of the other. Do not condemn the bad life of the other. Don't be a judge. Let us not judge the one who lacks as well as the one who exceeds. We are different ships looking to survive. Let everyone navigate their own route with respect, empathy, and responsibility.
This great song was written by the late great folk singer from San Francisco, John Fromer. Ready, orchestra? Hit it! We need the Buddhists and the Baptists,
the Quakers and Catholics too,
the atheists and the agnostics,
Muslims and Jews.
We need people of all nations,
all colors and all creeds,
to put an end to war, put an end to greed. Gonna take us all to make a change, take us all to win the peace. Gonna take us all in the streets, gonna take us all, gonna take us all. We need your friends and your neighbors,
The poets and the painters,
the socialists and the anarchists,
the pacifists and the humanists,
every culture and community.
people black and white and brown.
At times we won't see eye to eye, but we stand on common ground. Gonna take us all to make a change, take us all to win the peace. Gonna take us all in the streets, gonna take us all to make a change, all to win the peace, all out in the streets. Gonna take us all, gonna take us all, gonna take us all, gonna take us all.
Thank you, John Arterton, for that beautiful song. It's true. We do need the Buddhists and the Baptists, the homeless out in the rain, the seniors and soccer moms for a world that is humane. Thank you, Janae, for the story of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s parents and the institutional racism into which young MLK was born. Thank you, Bill Motter, for that inspirational poem and for this week's Candles of Joy and Concern. Many of you have let me know your reactions to last week's worship service on critical race theory. I appreciate all the notes you've sent. This worship service builds on that one and also on my other previous worship service, We Are Not Alone. And it is true, we're not alone. As adult MLK said, we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied together in a single garment of destiny. Yes, I used the same quote last week, and yes, I'll probably use it again. Unitarian Universalists understand this as our seventh principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. UUs also understand this as covenant. We in this congregation have bound ourselves to one another in a web of our own choosing, our own making, a web that we make and we remake every time we say this is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. We remake the web every time we attend a covenant group, every time we share our vulnerabilities in that covenant group. We remake it every time we attend a committee meeting or a board meeting. We remake it when we volunteer on Fridays for the homeless picnic or help build the tiny house. We remake the web every time we attend worship on YouTube, share our joys and concerns, talk with each other during the Zoom coffee hour afterwards. And every time we remake the web, we realize we are not alone. We have that feeling. Sometimes just for a precious moment, we have that feeling we are connected, tied in a single garment of destiny. Maya Angelou said, we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. But Dr. King's Garment of Destiny quote in his letter from a Birmingham jail is preceded by the immortal words, an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And if I am connected to you and you face an injustice, I want to know about it. And to know about it, I have to know you. I have to listen to you. Really listen and learn, not be defensive, even if the injustice is perpetrated by someone who looks like me. Now, a lot of you wrote to me when I tested positive for COVID-19. You were sympathetic, and I appreciate that sympathy. You were kind. You brought me food. You lamented the fact that this was Florida's welcome gift to me. But really, I was fine. I have a home to go to. I have health insurance through my wife, Lucinda. I have a job. I have a car that works. Bill Motter just read us that poem based on the Damien Barr quote, "We are in the same storm, but we are not in the same boat." Some of us are on super yachts. Some have just one oar. My boat might not be a super yacht, but it's pretty comfortable. And I weathered my personal COVID storm just fine. And I didn't just end up in this comfortable boat. I mostly didn't earn my way to this boat. I mostly was plunked into this boat by systems that plunk other people who don't look like me into much smaller boats, into boats with holes, into boats with just one oar, into boats that have holes that were punctured into them, into boats that leak, into boats that sink. Before I met Lucinda, I dated and lived with my girlfriend, and we got in an argument one night about who's going to drive the car home. We both were graduate students, and one of us had to drive the car home. Each of us wanted the other to do it. Each of us thought we were right, and the other was wrong. And finally, she broke down. She said she was afraid. I said, "What do you mean you're afraid? You've driven this, it's not far. You've driven this road a million times." She said, "Yeah, but what if the car breaks down? It's dark. I'm not safe. I am more at risk than you." And it was nighttime, and this was before cell phones. Now, by then, I had already started my first career in sexual and domestic violence prevention. But even so, it didn't cross my mind that driving the car would be a safety risk for her. And that was an early example to me of male privilege. Like my white privilege that I spoke of last week, this is not privilege I asked for, but it was given to me anyway. The same with cisgender privilege, heterosexual privilege, Gentile privilege, neurotypical privilege, able-bodied privilege, gender binary privilege, class privilege, and age privilege, plus others that I've forgotten or not thought of because of my own particular privilege. We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike, but we are also unalike in what we face systemically, depending on our gender, race, class, our religion, age, sexual orientation, gender expression. We are alike, but we are unalike in the daily sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, and other daily acts of violence that are perpetrated against some of us that others of us are sheltered from. So yes, we need the Buddhists and the Baptists, but the homeless out in the rain face a different life than the soccer moms. And those of us not in the rain need to listen to those who are, because we are all connected, and a threat to any one of us is a threat to all. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace by understanding the power structures that privilege some by marginalizing others. To seek the truth in love by listening to those out in the rain, and to help one another by creating a world where all are fed, clothed, safe at home, and honored. Amen, and blessed be.
To keep our congregation thriving, let's remember our connections to one another and not forget our offerings to support the means to those connections. As we listen to our brief offering music, please click on the eye in the upper right-hand corner of your screen to make a contribution. You can also donate through the Gift Plus app via our webpage under the Giving tab, or by sending a check to the church office. Thank you.
And now we pass the flame of our chalice to each other as we say, together we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world. Thank you so much for coming to today's worship service. I hope you can stay afterwards for our online coffee hour. The information will be available on your screen in a moment. Please stay safe and well throughout the week. We'll see you soon.